I'm glad that indeed we don't have someone waiting after 45 minutes, because there's always too much to share. Maybe a little background information. I am from the Netherlands. I live, well, I could say Os, but for people who come from that city, no, it's better to avoid that name somehow. I live in a very small village with like 1,000 people there. So it's the opposite of being in Den Haag. It's like, whoa, that's busy. I'm living there with my family, 3 kids, and I am a hobby farmer, so I'm breeding horses. They are my future team. And I'm going to, well, I could talk you through TRU, but I think it's like impossible by itself. Who of you, maybe hands up for if you know TRU? Okay, so from those people, who has the book at home? Big book. Who has read it? What do you remember from it?
What I remember from it is that you, well, for me, that you have to go through your own you in order to be able to facilitate communities to go through the you on topics together.
Yes. So I'm going to start with a quote and I'm going to end with it too. So don't bother if it's too much to handle in the beginning. Welcome. I think what you're referring to is the quote that brought Otto Scharmer like a few decades ago to, we have to work on this. And it's a quote coming from Bill O'Brien, and he said, the success of an intervention depends on the interior condition of the intervener. That's the whole essence. That's a big book, and I'm grateful for Otto and the team for creating the language to now make it possible to apply that simple essence, it's simple and it's not easy, into corporate, into government, into systems change. Question for you, maybe. Like, where do you have your best ideas? Where? What location? Wow. We agree on shower. Give me a different location. Holiday. Swimming pool. So I could make a little differentiation, and instead of what is the location, what is the activity, what is the verb, what are you doing? And of course showering, swimming, but what kind of things are you doing? Walking, thinking, wandering. Okay, I can ask this, and it's a little bit... Dreaming. Brilliant. So I can ask this to any group of people. I can ask this teachers, I can ask this lawyers, I can ask this whoever, and no one is ever going to say, I'm having my best ideas behind a computer or in a meeting. So next question could be, where do you spend most of your time working? There's hope for the future. So it is interesting that apparently here we are all experts in something, or becoming, or having the aspiration to become an expert in something. And then when you become an expert, you go to a place where you are acknowledged for your being the expert in the something, and you spend your time in meetings, behind your computer, and apparently you're not your most clever you. So why do we do that? Because if we go back like location and activity, showering, forest, I can go on, but it's all having that same essence of, it's not really thinking. It is not hard working. If we ask people, how are you doing? Most of the time it is good. Second word is? So there's another problem. Here we find ourselves being experts, doing the wrong things at the wrong place, being too busy to be clever. So we have to change that. And for me, that is the most simple explanation of TRU. We have to take care for ourselves in order to be clever. And I'm not talking about clever like knowing, but I'm talking to make the connection with our deeper source of knowledge. And it's not about sitting on a meditation cushion. It's not about yoga. People have this association, if I say Teriyu, it's like, oh, those people that are trying to be mindful. And no, it's about mindful action. How can we move in between or balance on one side analysis paralysis, because we are thinking and thinking and thinking and creating great project plans. By the time we're done with thinking, the issue has changed. And then we have our idea, we have our inspiration, we go into action. Most of the time, it's coming from a good place, but it could become mindless action. I'm coming back to that. What we are going to do today is have, and I missed yesterday, so I heard that already some part of it is covered, and that's good, because that makes that you can move immediately to a deeper layer of understanding. I'm going to use a part of the overview that Mark referred to yesterday. The Apollo 9 that went to the moon, people come back, what made the most impact? So can you move to slide 3, please? Skip the first one. Yes. Enjoy.
In 1968, Apollo 8 went to the moon. They didn't land, but they did circle the moon. And I was watching it on television, and at a certain point, one of the astronauts casually said, "We're going to turn the camera around and show you the Earth." And he did. And that was the first time I had ever seen the planet hanging in space like that. And it was profound.
I think that for me, like for many other people, it was quite a shock. I don't think any of us had any expectations about how it would give us such a different perspective. I think the focus had been, we're going to the stars, we're going to the other planets, and suddenly we look back at ourselves, and it seems to imply a new kind of self-awareness.
One of the astronauts said, when we originally went to the moon, our total focus was on the moon. We weren't thinking about looking back at the Earth. But now that we've done it, that may well have been the most important reason we went.
I can only describe what I've seen. You know, looking down at the Earth, and you see that line that separates day into night slowly moving across the planet. Thunderstorms on the horizon casting these long shadows as the sun sets. And then watching the Earth come alive, and you see the lights from the cities and the towns.
The events you see from space, like flying over thunderstorms, looking at them from the top, were spectacular. Like a fireworks show going on, and you're looking at it from the very top.
You know, shooting stars going below us, or you know, dancing curtains of auroras. It's just very hard to describe all the, you know, the colors, the beauty, the motion.
My job as lunar module pilot was to be responsible for the lunar module itself and responsible for the science on the moon. So when we started home, I had a little more time to look out the window than the other guys because most of my responsibilities were completed. We were in a particular mode called the barbecue mode. So we were flying like this and rotating like that. What that caused to happen was every 2 minutes, a picture of the Earth, the moon, the sun, and a 360-degree panorama of the heavens appeared in the spacecraft window. And I had studied astronomy, and I had studied cosmology, and fully understood that the molecules in my body, and the molecules in my partner's bodies, and in the spacecraft, had been prototyped in some ancient generation of stars. In other words, it was pretty obvious from those descriptions we're stardust. Well, that was pretty awesome and powerful, particularly since I had a little more time at this point to be reflective and to think about it.
When we look down at the Earth from space, we see this amazing, indescribably beautiful planet. It looks like a living, breathing organism, but it also, at the same time, looks extremely fragile.
Because you go outside on a clear day and it's the big blue sky, and it's like it goes on forever, right? And how could we possibly, put enough stuff into it to fill it up with things that really change it? And yet, you see it from space, and it's this thin line which is just barely hugging the surface of the planet.
Anybody else who's ever gone to space says the same thing, because it really is striking and it's really sobering to see this paper-thin layer and to realize that that little paper-thin layer is all that protects every living thing on Earth from death, basically, from the harshness of space.
There's this very poetic concept that a lot of people express, that there are no boundaries from space. And I've heard a lot of my astronaut colleagues say that. Unfortunately, it's not true. You do see boundaries. They're mostly the result of human impact. You can see erosion, clear-cutting of forests, and it's a long litany of environmental impact that we've had on our planet, and that's something which, when you see it from a cosmic perspective, makes you really appreciate the concept of spaceship Earth, and that we're all here together.
We humans are responsible for ourselves, and if we are endangering our future, then we've got to learn how to do it differently and to go forward into a sustainable period. And right now, that seems very difficult to see how it's going to be, but we've got to work on it.
When I was above the space station, looking down at the space station, and looking down at the, against the Earth, and seeing this, amazing accomplishment, I was thinking, wow, there was 15 nations that worked together to build this amazing orbital complex in space. And if we can, take these 15 nations and do this amazing accomplishment, imagine what we can do by working together, by setting aside our differences for a common goal to overcome some of the challenges facing our planet.
We have this connection to Earth. I mean, it's our home. And I don't know how you can come back and not, in some way be changed. It may be subtle. You see differences in, different people in the just general response when they come back from space. But I think collectively, everybody has that emblazoned on their memories, the way the planet looks. You can't take that lightly. It really, you realize that you've been blessed by the opportunity to see that.
It really does look like this beautiful oasis out in the middle of nothingness. If you have a chance for your eyes to adjust and you can actually see the stars in the Milky Way, it's this oasis against the backdrop of infinity, of this just, enormous universe behind it. And it's, really a very moving experience to be able to see that with your eyes.
You look back at it and it's placed perfectly from the sun to take care of us, and you kind of take that reverse roll on about, okay, well, we need to be taking care of it too, so that it can continue to do that for us. And I don't know how you can't have a greater appreciation for it after you see it that way.
My invitation to you is to turn to a neighbor, maybe two neighbors, and talk about what touched you watching this video. What touched you? And the second question would be, where in your world, this is about going to the moon, and then turn the camera back to planet Earth. You can make that metaphor also something like turn the camera back to you, your work, us here sitting today, with our intentions, with our goals, with our aspirations. And my question to you, besides what touched you, is where do you see a world ending? What is not functioning anymore? Where do you feel the crack? And on the other side, where can you see something beginning? What is wanting to be born? Okay? Here are the questions. So turn the camera back. What is ending? What is being born? And maybe in your life and work, what do you feel is brewing? Something is bringing you here today. You will have, let's say, 7 minutes for this. And I know it's too short. It's always too short. Apparently, this was food for dialogue. I would like to hear a few voices on maybe that you discovered that touched both or the three of you, or maybe real different things that touched you. What came out? You have a mic too. Maybe we have strong voices is an option too.
I studied astronomy, so I like the pictures. And I have a problem with gravity, so I will emigrate to space in 15 years from now. I have to. So, but as far as the ending and so on, of course, most people here will think of things like nature and that we're, well, not taking very good care of our planet. And the good thing is that there's a feeling, and especially in this environment over here, that we can make a change. There's an awareness growing even throughout the world, at least throughout the Western world, that things can be changed.
Thanks. Here.
We had a group of 3 here with 2 challenge holders, so we were likely to build on each other. The thing we see ending are our happiness about conflicts, how it gives us feeling of control, and to create out of these conflicts some perception of value until we lose control and we think, oh God, what happened? Mm-hmm. And what touches was the humbling feeling that it is not control system, it's not markets, it are ecosystems that live in the big and the small. So what we see as a future from both our challenges, it's the power of de-escalation, of reconnecting, of building entities that are there to help each other and then go stronger. So lose the power of conflict.
I'll come back. Final one? Yeah.
I just saw the end of the movie, but I was touched by the format that you propose, because you dare to go out of just projecting a speech. And obviously, we talk about change and like a lot of projections, but we are already here together. So that's something to me. And then I was attracted by what's at the very top: ecological divide, self-nature; social divide, self-other; spiritual divide, self-self.
That's the cliffhanger.
So I guess it's very connected to conflict, what you just mentioned. And I guess maybe a question would be, how can we be aware that we comes before action? So it's like everyone talks about taking action here.
It's okay that you missed the first part. You're already there. Yeah, so how can we... I do go back to this one, because I think it is maybe a relevant story, and maybe some of you know it. This is the Washington Monument. And there was a time, I have no clue when this was, but there was a big problem, and it had to do with bird droppings. The whole thing, that pride of them was filthy and gross, and so of course they started to clean it up with very aggressive cleaning stuff. But then the monument was, what is the word? Uit elkaar aan het vallen? Crumbling. Crumbling, yeah, it was crumbling awfully. So they were like, my goodness, what to do? So what do if something like that is filthy by bird dropping? Because of the cleaning material, what do? Try something else to clean it? How do you do that? How do you get those birds out? Scarecrow. Okay, so there's also something stepping one back beyond or behind, and then it's the question, why are all the birds there? So why are all the birds there? Because there are thousands and thousands of spiders. Then what do? Clean the spiders. So do you think that's the reason that the spiders are there? That's a scary prophecy. The question is, why are all the spiders there? Yes. Why are all the flies there? Exactly. They are so proud on that monument, so what they do, when darkness comes, light. So all the spiders, all the flies, the first thing that light appears, they... So the only thing that they had to do was turn the light switch on half an hour later. That was the solution of the problem. So this is what good thinking can help. Instead of bombing all the birds off, or all the other or violent solutions, this is really thinking like, why? And sometimes that helps. Sometimes we are facing issues that are more complex. We cannot think our way out. So how do you differentiate things that you can think your way out and the other things? And there are a few criteria. At this point, we are facing social complexity. What is good for me is not good for you. At least that's what we think. And that's where the iceberg comes in. We focus on the bird droppings. So we think that we don't have the same thing on stake. Social complexity. There's dynamic complexity. We know so much. Here we are, all those experts behind computers and in meetings. We know so much, and at the same time, there's so much we don't know. Yet we act based on what we think we know. We don't know what we don't know. And with dynamic complexity, I mean that we don't know what is happening right here today, where and when did it start. Climate change, we can still hide behind, we don't know enough. We need to discover this, we need more policy on that, we have to explore, blah, 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 blah. Analysis paralysis, we don't act. Look what happened in Australia. It was clearly, years ago, this is going the wrong way. And that's what I really appreciated in the lecture this morning, the apology from our Prime Minister. It is happening right here today. We just don't have the collective capacity to pick up the signals and to translate them into now do what. And that's for a good reason. We want to solve. We are problem, solution-driven people. Like Bob the Builder, can we fix it? Yes, we can. No, we can't, because we don't know what's going on. Social complexity, dynamic complexity, and there's another one that's emerging complexity. Because things that we are working on today, that we are watching today, and then China comes with a virus. And of course, there are places where people are working on it and are thinking on it, but we only have one attention. And where do we put it? So I am now saying we only have one attention. We also have only one globe. And maybe in future, there will be more. But I like to keep on turning the camera back to our, planet Earth, like our Earthship. And I still think that I only have one life in this body. And as long as that's my truth, I can do one thing with it. What's the best thing? I don't want to end up and turn the camera back on me like, what did I do? Because the thing is, we know so much more. So my working life, I spent many time teaching about theory U, but I prefer applying it. I don't care about the model because it's as simple as what I said. It's the quality of being that you bring in. What is going on right here, today, right now? What are the things that are not being addressed? And I had the privilege to talk about, it's in the Achterhoek, it's a province in the Netherlands, where drought is the biggest problem today. Because it's the most high place, the highest place in the Netherlands. There's no river, there's no sea, and Germany keeps the water for them. We have had 2 very dry summers, and there's a good chance that we will have another very dry summer. And so we're talking about this with natuurmonumenten, nature preservation, farmer union, policymakers, water board, all those kind of people that are feeling a responsibility. We have to act. And again, I find myself in, okay, we have to do some research here, we have to do some research there. What we did was just collecting all the initiatives working on this topic. 50. We had 50 topics, 50 initiatives. Then we did some, what if you would say, which 3 do you expect most impact from and why? Very interesting. 12 people, there was nothing like all energy going to certain initiatives. It was like variety all over. And then we were like, so what is now clever to do? Where are we going to collaborate? What are we going to do different? And there was again this like, we don't know. Then I asked them 2 questions, and this was not a happy ending for that meeting. I asked them, you are all sitting here for your own sector, and we have a collective responsibility here, or collective challenge. Do you think, if you speak for your own sector, that you are getting where you need to come? Are you going to your boss later today, or we made it? And the second question is, if we look at the collective challenge that we are working on, are we getting there? And people were not capable to articulate the answer. There was like, for nature preservation, it was easy. No, there's extinction as we speak, and it will continue, and I am worried to the bones. The collective challenge, we're not fixing this. We're not doing the right stuff in the right volume. Speaking to the organization responsible for drinking water, they were very honest. They said, well, we can make it. We will have enough drinking water to sell. But if we look at the collective challenge, Then we came to government. We came to the water board. And I don't want to make this personal, because I think this is about all of us. I was given answers like, at this moment, we can't do any more. We can't work any harder. Everyone is doing the best they can. Transitions take time. This is normal. It's all in the process. And first you have the winning coalition. Then I said, that's not an answer to my question. Are you getting where we need to get? Yeah, but if we can't, that's not the question. So let's skip that part. Are we saving the global? Are we getting to our global goal? No. But of course, this is only the Achterhoek, and we are depending on the bigger picture, and then we have the US. So I said, so if this is because also for the farming, for the farmers, it was clear, like, we're not getting there, it's not enough. So there was this, my goodness, now go back to the 50 initiatives. What are we doing? What are we spending our time? If we really don't believe this is not enough. Because then we can go back to the Australia example. If they would have realized and faced reality earlier, they would have done different things. And I think it's very about time that we start talking about, if this is reality that we are in, then what do we do? One globe, one life. And here we are. And this is also why I felt attracted to the Odyssey. So many great people. What if we could move to a level below in action? And I want to make that, how much time do I have? So there is this, what I said, the simplicity of the quality of being, simple, not easy. But the book is, of course, filled with brilliant stuff. And that's this. So there are 4 levels of responding to change. The first one is, if there's a fire, what do? You do something about the fire. That's easy. And I'm not saying don't do anything about the fire. But if that fire comes again, and maybe 3 times, Then it's about time to think about what is causing this fire. What is clever here? And you move from manifest action. So this is again, we have those mountain tops. This is what we see, it's fire. But then you start thinking. And this is what we see often. We see change processes working on this. This is what we do with lean management. We look at process, we look at structure. How can we redesign? How can we... I'm going to use an example from the water board in Brabant, where they had to deal with the remaining of medication in water. They have the responsibility for enough clean, healthy water, enough clean, safe. And medication remains, that's not a good thing in your water. So what do you do here? What would be an idea? They are making filters. That's what they're good in. They build stuff, they create things that you put in the water that can filter the medication out of the water. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, and by the time the filter is ready, the medication changed. So the filter is not a good thing anymore. And you can continue with creating new filters. It doesn't take the responsibility away for them to create filters, because it is a part of the solution. But instead of that, they had to go deeper. Like, could we change process? Could we change policy by, for example, adding different stuff in a medication? Or asking people to pee in a bag and bring the bag to the pharmacy. That kind of solutions. But I think you already understand that this is not going to be, on the root cause, the solution for the issue. And they had no idea what to do. And I'm glad that Nature 2.0 is in the room, because they are working with specifically that water board, because they had the guts to continue exploring, like, what's going on here? What is happening here? They started to do interviews with doctors, with local government, with healthcare organizations. And they did this discovery. I find it shocking that 80% of all medication coming into the surface water was stress-related medication. 80% stress-related. That changed the paradigm. What are we doing here? It started the discussion, what is illness these days? What is sick in our society? Back to your question, how are you good busy? If you say, good, I've got nothing to do, you're not a hero. It's the opposite. And here we are, working ourselves into medication. It's not only working, it's how do we live, it's how do we spend our free time, if there is free time. When do you do nothing? Never. So this is what is health, what do we think? And when I heard this is also about me. This is when my kids are sick, I don't let them be sick, no, I give them a little pill so I can go to my work. And it's not like good or bad, but it's something to be aware of. Is that the best thing to do? Is that how we work as a collective, as a society? So what are they doing now in that exploration of how come? What's happening? What happened to our society that apparently we need that medication so much? And they discovered the phenomenon of the blue zone. I don't know if you know about it. There are, I hope I say it correct, there are 9 places in the world where they found out that people live longer happily and healthy. And there's no scientific explanation for that. It's not like because this is there in the soil and the sky, la la la. No, they have no clue. They do know that there are characteristics. People in that specific area have purpose. They know what to stand up for. They have community. They know they belong to community. It's about food. It's about eating, blah, 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 healthy. So there were like a few of those characteristics. So what are they doing now? So this started years ago. It's a water lab. They are now creating blue zones, which is impossible because you can't build them because you don't know what it is. Instead of accepting that it's impossible, they are saying we're going to move as close as possible to what's working there. So how can we bring in, and I was telling this yesterday to a woman from Housing Association, and she was like, they have nothing to do with that kind of stuff, it's waterboard. No, continue making filters, that's better. You will never get there. And of course, it's not their work to create blue zones, but they are now collaborating with local government, with regional government, with healthcare, with community development. And that's what they're doing now, and this takes years. So can we, if on top of the icebergs, we have that social divide, we have a spiritual divide, we have an ecological divide, we're using the Earth in too fast way that the Earth can recover. We know that. There's social divide. The way we own is completely unfair. That's on the source of conflict. And there's spiritual divide. There's loneliness. There are more and more people dying from suicide than ever. It's still more than from violence or from nature disaster. And it's only increasing. Youth people, young people, suicide. So those are what we see. And can we? Because this was about water and clean water. But what they did was, in their responses, they went down. They went down. They explored. They were sensing. And here they found the blue zone concept. And they're now not implementing blue zones, because then you go into the mindless action. Yeah, we want a blue zone. No, this is about 0.8. Apparently, community works. So what can we imply that brings community back into society? And we do a small step. Don't worry, be crappy, because you will never think your way out. It's not on the level of bird droppings. So you do one small thing, and then you check, and you do the same you again. It's like, what happened? You reflect on it, you learn, and you iterate. And that's how you continue. You continue with awareness-based system, because with acting, you kill all the birds. And this is the question, and I think I have to end. Yeah, I know. What can I do? What can we do if we bring back awareness-based system change? We know that we have to look at the whole picture, but can we use different levels of intelligence? Can we stop working so hard? Can we stand still? Can we turn back the camera to planet Earth, to planet self, and to move back to connection with what we know here is really important? That is the question. And instead of then going again into action, stay there. It's not, sometimes I hear people, yeah, I know theory, I do that too. And then I ask them, so what is your practice? And I'm not here to sell people a practice. But don't think that when you read the book that you know how to do it, because it's not doing, it's being. And it's all based on what you said about letting go. We have to let go what we know. This is when Ford said, when I would have asked my clients, they would have asked for faster horses. So this is where the different level of intelligence comes in. We have to open our mind to become curious, like what's actually going on? We have to open our heart and to step in the muscle of compassion. It's not about agreeing with what happens, but it's can I leave my knowledge and what I think of people, my whole opinion, and operate from the field by understanding what someone else is moving. And there's a third level. To go here, this is open will. This is about courage. Where are we collectively find the courage to say, I don't know, we don't know, but we have to do something. And it has to be very different if we want to be in time.
We have to do something. Yes, we have to do something.
Am I in time?
You're exactly in time. Perfect. But I think there might be some questions, and we have some time for some questions, I hope. So actually it's lunchtime, so who has some questions for Simoon? No questions at all? Everything? Must be, yes.
At the end you said, with action you kill all the birds. What if it's action that's really ignite progress on your values and belief?
So let me correct. Let's be aware for mindless action.
Okay, so mindful action, that's thoughtful action, that's where, so I was triggered by not action because...
We have to act.
Exactly.
No, sorry.
So mindful action. It has
yeah.
To be. Okay, right.
Yeah, and maybe this is not my natural style. So I was known when I worked for local government, they called me Bob de Bouwer.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
because
great.
I thought, it's easy, can't you see it? But there's this wonderful painter by Magritte, where someone holds an egg and someone's painting a bird. And it's fine if I can see the bird, but if I'm the only one, I apparently need to do something. And I also have to, don't get attached to the bird, because maybe it isn't. Or maybe it is a bird, but a different sort of. But it is about action. But I had to really, when I, at a certain point in my career, watched back and I could look back on great processes, great projects, but I knew deep down there, impact. And that's maybe, if I ask you, do you sometimes, are you familiar with the half brainstorm? With a half brainstorm, I mean that you are in a project, in a hackathon, or whatever, a day, and you have a great process and a great facilitator, and you end up with mountains of post-its and great inspiration. And half a year later, 2 years later, you think like, what happened? What did we do? Nothing. So this is again the balancing thing, and this is also the analysis paralysis. Real innovation needs to be on the level of, oh God, no. Because we have no clue. We don't want it because it's weird. We are based on, we want something that we understand. We have to learn to embrace like, oh God, no. That interesting little video, 1998, where people were interviewed about, do you want a mobile phone? And people were like, are you out of your mind? And then be always available. This is only 20 years ago, 22 by now. And by now we cannot think that it was ever different. Like, how did he do it?
I think we can listen for another hour to you talking. It's very inspiring. Thank you very much. A warm applause for Simoon. I got a little gift for you.
Can I say one more thing?
Okay, of course you can.
So, I'm not here about the model. Let me repeat that. I am what you could frame as, was it an idealistic pragmatist? Something like that? It's not about the principle, it's not about the book. It's about the quality of being and practicing. But since I work for the Presencing Institute, I just want to, if you are intrigued a little, we always have, in September starting again, this wonderful, massive open online course. This is where internet does great stuff, where you can, in 3 months, really learn the theory, but also apply it. So if you are interested, I think you can find me. But there is, I hope you're intrigued, and then there's more. Thank you, and good luck with
Thank you very much for being here.